right, let me testing on this. Yep. Get this open. All right, so we're working with chapter 2 this week. And basically, this is going to be tables and queries, designing database, extracting information. And remember, we talked about last time that your data, all data, is stored in tables with access. You have, I did include an ebook link to make it easier to get there to the book. There's a study guide. That's what we're going to go through today. You have a training, simulation training, simulation exam. You also have the Grader project for the zoo, and there's a video about the zoo Grader project. And then there's an additional international foodies, and then there's practice quiz for chapter 2. Okay, and you can go through that as many times as you want to. That's no grade with this quiz. That's just for you to be able to practice up for the exam. I'm going to skip going through the geometrics practice today for a minute, and then we'll go back to that in just a little bit. So that way we can look at some more questions. All right, so I pressed the link, and this is our book for chapter 2, and here's all the objectives, create and modifying tables, query using the query wizard. There's multiple ways you're going to create a query and work through it. So let's look at the study guide. One of the first things in the study guide is this information on page, whatever page this is, page 134. Thank you. Okay. So number 1, I've given you a blank here, but in truth, you need to know the 6 items here that are listed for designing tables. Okay. These items are important for designing tables. Include necessary data, design for now and for the future. Remember, we talked about designing for the future means we have to look at how big it is, how much room is going to be taken up. Determine, store data in their smallest parts. Determine primary keys, link tables using common fields, and design to accommodate calculations. So number 1 of the 6 guidelines for designing tables is to link tables on related fields. The option that is not a guideline is to store data in as large a number of parts as possible. Storing data this way breaks the principle of table design efficiency. Table design efficiency. So that's number 1. And that's the whole point of this, is designing efficiently. You have to think through your design as you go. So that's the idea here, is that you're able to plan for what you're going to use and making sure that it's actually, being offered in a way that is the best. Okay. And here's an example, rough draft of tables and fields of a simple bank database, right? So you'd have a customer table and all their important information. Then you'd have an accounts table, their accounts. Then you'd have the branch, right? So all that data doesn't need to be intertwined. It needs to be separated, right? So one of the things that's critically important is number 2, when you're designing for the best opportunity, you don't want to unnecessarily store data in more than one place. If you do, that creates data redundancy. You do not want repeated data. And here in page 137 is talking about data redundancy. And the way you eliminate that is by these relationships. Remember, you can put a primary key that'll match a foreign key. So the primary key would be in the table where that data is housed, and it's going to match up with a foreign key in another table that may be named the same, but the data is not housed in that table. So that becomes a foreign key. So you don't want redundant data. You want to keep it all separated out individually in different tables. The minute it becomes redundant, what happens is if you have to update it, that's where the challenge comes in. If you have it in multiple places and suppose somebody's address changes, what do you have to do? You have to go everywhere and make sure the new address is updated, right? That becomes an extreme management issue. You can't keep up with all of that. So data redundancy is a critical piece of creating proper tables and fields in tables. So when you're starting to work with tables, right, creating, modifying tables, working with data, one of the first things you'll end up doing is creating fields and field names, right? Whether that's in design view, like our picture showing us, or in data sheet view, you're going to add field names. One of the things that cannot happen, one thing you don't want to include is spaces. Number 3, field names should describe data, can be 64 characters, may include numbers, but they cannot begin with a space. Cannot begin with a space. So you can't put a space at the beginning of a field name and it work. It will not work correctly. And in fact, when you look at field names, most of the time, there are no spaces. And this gives you an example right here. Product cost, there's no space between product and cost. Last name, there's no space between the last and the name, right? Typically, that's true of field names, right? So when you're creating a new field name, you can't begin with a space. Then when you look at, when you create a field, right, it has a certain data type. So what kind of information is going to be stored there? Number 4, each field in a table has a data type that determines how the data can be used. It is not best to practice. It is not best practice to initially set everything as short text. In other words, you don't want to automatically assign every field as short text. Last time we talked about this, short text can house 200 and something characters. So everything doesn't need to be short text. The other thing about short text is reading it as text items, so it's always left aligned. Some things are numbers. Some things you need it to be a number to calculate. Some dates you need to have in there. So the data type is important. And here's an example of how many characters, like short text, 255 characters. Look at long text, 64,000 characters. That would make your database huge if you assigned very many long text data types, right? Date and time is showing, currency, an auto number, and we're going to talk about auto number quite a bit, a yes and no field, a hyperlink, attachment, all of the different ways you can actually use data types, right? So number 5, the blank view is used when you want to create or modify the structure of a table, adding, editing fields, setting properties. Design view is the answer to that one. So when I'm looking at this one, I'm going to grab one of these tables and we're going to double click it. Remember, every time you double click a table, it opens in data sheet view. But this is talking about what happens when you're in design view. So I'm just right clicking on the tab, left clicking on design view. Now I'm in the structure of the table. Now I'm looking at the data types, the actual field names, if I have a different caption, like most captions actually make things look correctly, right? That's why you have a caption. So you're actually naming the field correctly instead of it being all crammed together, right? Good. How about you? All right. So, and all the other part of this design view is that you're looking at this is where you're changing the field size if you want to shrink it. Because remember, look at this category name. We're never going to have something that is true short text, 250 something characters, right? We know it probably won't be more than 15, so we change the field size to be 15. And that's the point of your design view look. Now we're changing the background structure of it. Number 6, one of the choices given, the most reliable type of field to use for the primary key is an auto number data type. And notice this is a perfect example. The primary key in this particular table is category ID. It is the primary key. And notice the data type is auto number. Remember, auto numbering gives everything a unique number. They cannot repeat. It is unique to every customer or whatever type of field category in this case. But we could look at the customers table as well. So I'm going to open it, right? We have a lot of customers. Looks like 91 customers. And if I right click and go left click on design view and look at it, my customer ID here is the primary key. And it has a field size of 5 because they know the customer ID will never be longer than that. Now this one is actually short text. So you're typing it in, but it's no longer than 5 is the character right there. Autofill allows the Access database system to number. Okay. So I got another one about auto number. Number 7, a field that automatically assigns the next consecutive number to each new record uses the auto number data type. So every new record that's added, it's just going to give that particular category the new number. So let's say we're going to add a new field here. The categories, let's see, this is all, I'm going to put accessories. And notice as soon as I put accessories, number 9 is automatically applied to the first category ID because it's giving every category a new number. I'm going to put napkins, utensils, spices, if they get that, right? And then I could add a picture to it. Notice I have my pencil, so that tells me I hadn't saved it. But as soon as I press enter, now I lose the pencil, and now I have a new category in this particular field or in this particular table that is number 9, accessories. If they got, because you notice restaurants now ask you, do you need utensils? Do you need ketchup? Do you need, they're conserving is what they're telling you. We're conserving it. Number 8, a field with a short text data type can store up to 255 characters. So if we don't change it, let's say, and we just put it as short text, notice all of these are really efficient. They've all been changed. None of them, right, have 255. But if I come up with a new field here, I'm just going to name it new field. And I leave it at short text and don't change the field size. Notice it goes to 255. So 255 is number 8. Now, when we're talking about how these tables relate to one another, let's talk about that just a minute, because that's the key component. That's key to us understanding why we do some of the things we're doing, right? This doesn't want me to get off of that. Short text there. If I go to database tools and relationships, woo, okay, so they've got several relationships here, right? Notice notice all the tables, notice all the lines, and you have a specific type of connection in those. Number 9, a table can only have one primary key, but may have multiple foreign keys. Foreign keys. Okay, so let me show you how to look at this. If you move some of these around, you'll actually get them separated where you can actually see those individual connections separately, right? So basically what this is saying is whatever table that the primary key, like for instance, shippers and shipper ID is a primary key in the shippers table, and it can relate to the orders. We'd want that to relate, right? Who's the shipper of your order? Same concept for order details. And you can manipulate every one of these tables that's displayed by just getting a double-headed arrow and moving sideways and down to see all fields, and across, moving it over so you can actually see everything that's there. They just shrink it so it doesn't take up as much room. All right. So where a supplier, like supplier ID, notice in this supplier's table, supplier ID is a primary key. It is connected to the products table in shipper supplier ID. That is a foreign key. Primary key, foreign key. Okay. Number 10, the property most often changed to control the amount of storage space used for the field is field size. Field size. So when we're talking about the size of each one of these, right? Remember, we're thinking about the database as it grows. That's the point, right? So when we're working with field properties, field size, notice, is the first property at the bottom that we can change. So the reason for that is that we can make sure it is actually in there correctly and not having a lot of space that's not being used. Number 11, to ensure that data follows specific rules when entered into a field, you apply a validation rule. Validation rule. Right here on page 144. Validation rule. Basically, this controls what can go into it. Here's an example. So you go online and you set up an account with a brand new business. You go to put in your state, right? And you try to type Louisiana and it gives you an error. Immediately tells you, it's a 2-letter state. We only want LA, right? And in fact, now, instead of that, they have drop downs automatically. That's to control every piece of data that's entered. Because realistically, if we entered data, right, if we said, everybody get your name, address, and phone number, we would enter it multiple ways. We may put our name all caps. We may put the first letter and second letter all caps. We may write it all lowercase. Those are 3 different ways. When you go to search for that data in a database, if it's not consistent, then it becomes a problem with trying to use that data. Okay, so this is a way to control it. It checks the data entered when the user exits the field. If the value entered violates the rule, then you get an error message, right? And that happens a lot whenever we're using online locations that we're actually signing up for. Number 12, unlike field names, the caption property allows you to display a more readable label in forms and reports. So it won't change the way it looks in the table. But when you're in it when you're in the item in the table itself, there will be an option to put a caption like this. This is an example. This table has the category name field. Notice there's no space. For readability, you go down to the field properties at the bottom and you add it like it would normally be written. So then when you create a form, it'll say category space name. It won't say the field name where there's no space between it. Okay. If you create a report, it'll say category space name and not the name put together. Okay. So that's the point of being able to include a caption. Another one is an input mask, number 13. To make sure all phone numbers include the same format, you would apply a input mask. When you're online and filling out a form, you know, there's input mask all the time. It'll say, it'll have dashes. So 318 dash, and then it'll be another number and another for your phone, right? That's an input mask. It's controlling how the data is entered. Again, it's a big deal with databases that you control how the data is entered. Why? Because we have multiple people all the time entering data, and they enter it any old way. So that's a big one. Number 14, from one Access database to another, you can import tables, reports, and forms, but not sheets. Sheets are not an option to import. Now you can import that's from one database to another. That's not one database and pulling in files. So one database to another, you can import everything that a database would offer. Well, a database does not offer sheets. Sheets is in Google Sheets or somewhere else, right? Or a worksheet in an Excel format. Well, that's external data. That is not internal, right? That's not pulling from another table design or another Access database. So when you're pulling from another database, there's limits. You can't just pull everything. Number 15, imported data can be saved as a new table, existing table, or as a linked table, but not in a new form. Not in a new form. So let's say I'm going to create a new table. I'm going to pull from some external data. So I look for the source. I'm going to say from file, and I'm going to look for an Excel file. And when I browse for here and I try to, let me see if I can get to mine. See if I've got anything in here that I could use. Chapter 2. No, I have no Excel data files. So I'd have to pull another source. But when you're pulling it, you can create most of the time you're going to create a table with the data because you're pulling data into the forms are not something you normally would do. Okay. Number 16, enforcing referential integrity ensures that you cannot enter a value in a foreign key unless there's a corresponding value in the primary key. Remember, primary keys are within the original table. So for instance, if I'm here, my original categories table has a primary key of category ID, and then I go to the products table over here and I try to change the category ID. This is the foreign, right? Foreign key. That's not the primary key. The primary key is at the table. So it's a protectant that somebody in another table could not change the primary key information. Number 17, the most common type of relationship between tables is one to many. And that's why you have this the way it looks. It has a 1, a number 1, and it has an infinity symbol on the other end. That's one to many. If I'm one salesperson, how many sales do I want to have? A lot. I want to have as many as I can. I'm one person, but I want to have many, many sales. Same thing is here. They want to have many. They have one employee, right? And that employee ID goes to the orders. But how many orders do they want to have? They want to have as many orders as possible, right? So that's the idea. One to many. Another one about one to many, number 18. When a single customer makes multiple purchases from a store, that's an example of a one to many relationship. So I'm a single customer. When I make multiple orders to Amazon, that's a one to many, right? Amazon doesn't want to limit me in my orders. I'm one person, but I can have many, many orders. Number 19, the option to automatically delete records in related tables when the primary key record is deleted is called cascade delete related records. Cascade delete related records. So basically, there's cascade update, cascade delete related records. So those are options when you work through this. When you edit a relationship between something and you enforce referential integrity, you can cascade update and you can cascade delete related records. All right. And that's all related to whichever one is the primary. So let me show you this in here. So if I want to edit, anytime you want to edit a existing relationship, click on the line, double click it, and here it is. You see it. There's a connection between the orders table and the order detail table. Both of them are the order ID. Okay. They have checked enforce referential integrity. In other words, reference the material from the primary key into this foreign key. Cascade update. So anytime the primary key updates, the foreign key updates. Anytime you delete the primary key, the last one, cascade delete related records, anytime you delete the primary key in the primary one, it's going to delete it off of the other one. Okay? So you're saying let it happen from both sides. So if I create the relationship, I want it to delete it from over there in the other one, right? All right, so number 20, a blank allows you to ask questions about data in a database and view results in a data sheet, a query. So this particular database has queries in it, 2 of them. So I'm gonna double click one of them and notice it's just a blank kind of thing. It says 2019 beverage sales by ship country, okay? So I would have to pick a ship country. So I'm gonna right click on it. I'm gonna go to design view and look at it here. Now I'm on the back side of this particular query and notice the different pieces that are here and where it came from. Notice the different tables that are included in this query. So this query is not showing me, and you can manipulate this to drag it down and get it out of the way some so you can see it. But notice every table, you have a category table included to grab the category name. Bless you. You have the the orders table, and you're going to look at the ship country. You have the orders table for the ship date, the quantity, the order details for the quantity, and the products. So you have 4 tables involved in this one query. Do you notice that there's not one table that has all this information you're asking for in one? That's why you use queries. You have all the data, in different tables, and you're saying, I want to see these items. I've picked 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 things I want to see, and I'm going to pull them from whatever table they're in. And as the collection is, when I run that query and ask those questions, then I'm going to be able to see this data. Now, they also have a criteria that the only thing they're looking for is beverages under the category. You can see this because it's showing you they want only beverages, and notice it has quotes around it. So we're referencing a field. Okay. The other thing we're seeing is between two dates, and notice the pound symbols, right? So I'm going to get to builder here because I can make this a lot bigger so we can see it. And this is what's written. Expression Builder gives you the opportunity to see it larger. This information is written right here where I can't see everything. So it says between two dates. So it's just the month, just the year of 2016, right? Notice the pound symbols are saying between these dates. Anytime you are writing a formula or expression in Access, you have to define the quotes or the pound symbols here say this is a particular date in time. Okay. So that allows you to look at Expression Builder. You'll use that quite a bit as you go. But it just makes it easier to see. Now you can stretch this field and look at it too, but it's hard to make this bigger. Access is not one that you can really zoom in and make it bigger without going to Expression Builder, and that lets you see it a little bit easier. Right, let's see. Number 21, when you run a query, the results are shown in Data Sheet view. I just ran this query a minute ago. Query, Q-U-E-R-Y, query. All right, so here's another query that they created. I'm going to look at this May 9th, 2019 orders of beverages and confections. So this one, they included 2 items that they wanted to see. And May is the month of 2019. So they limited it. But notice when you run a query, when you double click it, it opens in Data Sheet view. That's number 21. Number 22, to limit the number of records returned in a query, you add a criteria. So let's see if they have a criteria. We know they do in here. Notice here's your criteria. The 2 criterias are under category. You said I only want to see beverages and I only want to see confections, even though the table has lots more than that, right? And then in ship date, I only wanted to see orders. They're in ascending order, but they're between 5/1/2015 and 5/31/2019. So 4 years of information, and they entered it twice because you have beverages. If you look at it as a row, you have beverages for this amount of time, and you have confections for this amount of time. So if I only wanted to see a shorter time period for one of those, I would change whatever row it's on. So anytime you get to criteria, they can be double layered, but just read them across. Everything across affects what you're doing here, left to right. All right, so let's keep on rolling here. Number 23, the comparison operator that is not valid in Access queries is equal to, greater than. Remember I said that before. Anytime you're writing a expression like that, it has to be greater than equal. It can never have equal in front of it. So just know anytime you see equal, greater than, less than after it, that's wrong. You can never use that in Access. And that's what they're trying to make the point of. You cannot use equals, greater than, less than. It has to be greater than, less than, equal. 24, the wildcard character used to match a single character in a specific position is a question mark. And that means that if I don't remember exactly something, or I need to reference something and I don't have it exact, I can use the question mark as a piece of the data. Get to that in the book. Maybe we can see it a little bit easier. Your book is defined by information, but in between the sections of information, there's exercises they have you working. Okay. And here's where it talks about the criteria row that we just looked at in that database. Remember, look at it across like it's a record, right? Look at the whole row. This is one we're going to talk about. 25, to quickly create a basic query. The best tool to use is the Simple Query Wizard. I would say use that every time, because I'm going to show you why. Instead of going to a design view, in fact, when you're on the exam for MOS, use the Simple Query Wizard just about every time. Never try to create one from scratch. Use this wizard. So let me show you why. I'm going to go here. And let me close out this query. We'll close it. In fact, I'm going to close all of this. Saying no because I don't want to change anything. Okay. All right, so if I go here and I do Query Wizard, and I do a Simple Query Wizard, the other options you have are a crosstab, which they love to do a crosstab on the exam, Find Duplicates Query Wizard, and Unmatched Query Wizard. So I'm going to do a simple one. This is so easy. Look at it. I can pick the pieces. Look. I can say, okay, I want to include in the table categories, right? I'm going to go to it first. I'm going to say, I want that one, and I want to know the category ID and the category name. That's all I need. Those two items of those two categories. Now I want to go to orders, and I want to say, I want to find out the order date and the ship date, because maybe I'm having a problem with people making orders, but the ship date is way out there. And I'm trying to find out why in my business, right? All right, so I'm going to hit next. It's going to give me all the details of every record. And I'm going to name it here. Category trial. I'll name it trial. So we'll know it's ours. And boom, there we go. So I have category 1, the name, what category it is, the beverages, has me every order date and every ship date. All right, there are 2,155 records. That's a lot, right? So it searched and found everything, every possible thing of when it was ordered and when it was shipped. And notice the first one, there's a distant difference here. Look at 6/13 was when it was ordered, and it was shipped in July. That's a big amount of time when you compare, looking here, one beverage, 3/4/2019, 3/14, 10 days, right? When you begin to look at this, what if you were given this new position to be the efficiency expert of this company? This would be a great place to become efficient, is in orders and shipping, right? Because this is a really positive or negative thing for your company. So the next step I would do here would probably be compare what's the amount of time, how long did it take, right? I'd add another field and subtract these two from each other and say, okay, and then I would look for the big red, this one took 24 days for them to get it. Really? No, we're going to figure out what the problem is, right? And it may be something simple. So the query wizard, you see how fast I created that? Now that's quite different than me going here and saying create, query design. Now I'm adding the tables. And I'm not saying that you can't do this. This is not the point. It's just I'm adding them. Then I'm dragging down the pieces. Then I'm running it after I do that. You see, quite different. So on the exam, always use the query wizard. It's just a lot faster. When you get the results, if it's not what you want, you can go create another one really quickly. All right. Any questions about chapter 2's information? I'm gonna let you use the sheet. Okay, so your assignments in here for this, there are 3 assignments. Remember, you can do them multiple times, anything you can redo. So we have the training, we have the exam, we have an assessment, and I'll work through the assessment with you on Thursday. If you want to do the zoo one, we'll go through it together, okay? And then you have one more capstone to do on your own, okay? Or a greater project, basically. All right? So I'm going to give you the rest of the time today to work on any of these assignments here, training, exam, greater project. And then the other thing I have in here is a quiz. If you want to practice the quiz, you can take it multiple times. Basically, this is just going to help you go through the material. All right. Let me do one other thing while we're still here before you get busy working on your assignments and stuff like that. Yes, if I have one. I don't know that I got one. I don't think there's a stapler up here. I'm going to look at geometrics just a minute. Remember, we want to be in geometrics every time we come, if at all possible. And your code for geometrics is in the class, in the announcement from the beginning of class. I think most of you in here have already done it. I'm just going to resume this same little test here that's there. We'll open it. Oh, I better close Access. I'm not going to like it that that's open. Close all these. Oh, I closed the one that was there. Try this again. The exits. And I'll try it again because I closed the one that was supposed to be open. Now I have it open. Remember to always do enable content. So this question says, using application parts, create an issues table. The issues table should relate to the customers table so that each customer can have many issues. Show the customer ID field and the name, and name the lookup column customer issues. Okay? So we're going to use application parts. So you always go to create. And I'm going to drop down, and there's an issues table right here. So I'm choosing it, and it says one customer to many issues. That is right. And it says relate it to the customers table. That's already there. So I'm leaving it. I'm going to hit next. The field customers, and I'm going to look at show the customer ID. Yep. What name would you like for the lookup column, right? That's where I'm choosing. I'm going to put customers issues is the name I want it to be. So I'm going to create it. And now it's there. And it's issues, right? Yes. Mm-hmm. All right. So let's see if we got it right. I got it incorrect. I missed a piece. So let's try it again. And let's look at the light bulb and see what piece I missed, right? We're going to create, we're going to application parts, click on one customer, many issues. So let's do that. We keep up with it. Maybe something simple. It may be something I've left open or something. I don't know. Customers is right. Click next. Boom. Click the drop down for field. Oh, now I've got it jammed here. Customers, next, and mine won't go anywhere. So it's something about me having that open because I did exactly what it's saying. I clicked create. If a pop-up appears, just click OK. So I did exactly what it's saying. It's because I had access open a minute ago that it's getting hung up. All right, so I'm gonna click next. I'm gonna continue anyway because I know I did it right. See, it's still giving me a problem. There we go. So if it happens to you like this, you close this out, is what you do if at all possible, and then you reopen it. I hate saving it, but I don't know that I can get out of it. I'm gonna hit save, let it save, and then I'll go back to it. I'll try again Thursday when we're in class together, and we'll work through some more geometrics questions. Okay. All right, I'm gonna give y'all time. Okay. I'm gonna stop my recording.